Selling your house in Phoenix. Here's what to expect. Hey, I'm Caitlin McKegg, a realtor here in Phoenix, Arizona. Thanks so much for coming to my channel. I'm assuming you're considering selling your house and that's why you're watching this video. So I am here to tell you what to expect when you sell your house in Phoenix. A quick reminder, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel, feel free to do so. I post 3 new videos a week about living in Phoenix, Phoenix real estate, and market updates. So you don't want to miss out on that. Also, feel free to follow me on social media so we can be friends and you can keep up to date there. So if you've watched any of my past videos, you know that we are in a seller's market here in Phoenix. So yeah, it's a great time to sell. But what can you expect when you're selling your house? I'm not gonna lie, it's not without headache and hurdles because that's gonna be part of the process regardless. But what I can say is homes are selling quicker and are more likely to sell in this market than they have been in the past. And so here's the scoop on what to expect. So even though our prices are really high in Phoenix right now, price is still very important. 35% of homes are selling over the listing price currently, and that's awesome, but your house is not guaranteed to do that if you're not priced appropriately. The homes that are selling over asking price are because they're priced reasonable. They're not starting extremely high and being bid up from there. So we have to make that decision before you list your house. Do you want to shoot for the stars and start with a really high price, or start with a price that's reasonable and assume you'll probably get multiple offers and hopes of the house selling over the listing price that you set? So if we look at all of Phoenix, the median sales price in Phoenix right now is $329,000. That's up significantly from last year at this time. So how do we determine what a good price is for your house? In order to do that, we'll look at comparable sales, and I'll help you do this. The best way to do that is to look in your same neighborhood and try to find a model match that has sold in the last 6 months. Now, that's not always possible, but what we try to look for is a house that has the same number of bedrooms, similar square footage. If yours is a single story, then we want to compare another single story to that as well. We also compare the size of your lot and whether or not you have a pool, and then looking at upgrades such as kitchen upgrades, flooring upgrades, etc. It's best to look within the last 6 months because our market's moving so quickly right now. The most comparable data is going to be within the last 3 to 6 months of sales. But if we do have to look back a year, we can definitely do that to pull more data. Once we have all this information, we'll take a look at these true comparable sales to your home and determine what price they sold for and what your house will be able to sell for based off of that information. It's important to price your house right for 2 reasons. If you price it too high from the start, we might not see a lot of traffic or interest, and if you're on the market for more than 2-3 weekends without an offer in this market, obviously there's a problem. So we really want to avoid going stale in this market. Second, although homes are selling for over the listing price and we're seeing prices continue to rise, appraisers are still doing their job. So it's likely that your buyer is going to need financing, in which case there's going to be an appraisal and the bank has to approve that appraisal. So the last thing we want to do is get into a bidding war with the buyers, get them priced up way above your list price and under contract at that amount, and then we get a low appraisal right before we're supposed to close. When that happens, we have to renegotiate the purchase price, and if you're not willing to come down in your price as the seller or the buyer's not willing to come up, we'll have to cancel the whole contract. So it's really good to price appropriately from the start so that we can avoid having these issues weeks into the transaction. The second thing that we'll talk about when listing your house for sale is preparation. So there's a lot that you might need to do in terms of maintenance, cleanup, and just getting the house ready for sale overall. I have a lot of tips for you in order to do this, but giving the house a good cleaning or hiring a cleaning crew to do so is always a great idea. Also, taking down any personal photos, personal decor, have the house look staged as much as possible so that a new buyer can really picture themselves in the house. There's going to be a disclosure form that you have to fill out as a seller, and it's a really long form, probably about 7 pages, that asks tons of questions to have you disclose everything and anything that you know about the house. And this is super important because you want to make sure you do disclose everything to that new potential buyer. Everything from a leaky sink back 10 years ago to the windstorm that ruined your roof last year that you've since repaired. Don't hide anything on these disclosure forms because you want to make sure that you're truthful with the buyer, and keep in mind they're going to do their own inspection as well, and they'll determine the issues that might cause concern for them. That being said, if there are any maintenance issues that you've been avoiding or know you need to get to on the house, now is the time to do them. Even if they're small roof repairs or repairing drywall, small areas of the pool, cleaning up the landscaping, those types of things will all make a difference when a buyer's walking through the house to know that the house has been really well maintained. So it's really a good time to do those things before we list if they're minimal. Now, I don't advise that you go redo all of your flooring or repaint the whole house if it's fairly neutral to start with. There's a lot that buyers can overlook and picture their own taste, but you do want to make sure that you're conveying the sense of a well-maintained house. So if there's any small repair items to do before listing, I always recommend that you take care of those. Now, here's the fun part. Once we go live, you need to expect this house to sell pretty quickly, especially if we've priced it right. Here are the median days on market for every major city around the Phoenix metro area. Scottsdale is actually the highest with 14 days on market, and that's only 2 weeks. Phoenix is about 7 days on market. Chandler and Gilbert are about 5 days on market. Mesa, Tempe, and Glendale are about 6 days on market, and Peoria is about 7 days on market. So all in all, those are median numbers, and they're for the various cities. Some of this will depend on the price point that you've listed the house at as well, but you can anticipate probably 1 to 2 weeks, and you're seeing a lot of activity, perhaps even getting an offer in the first weekend listed on the market. Now, I did say this is a seller's market, but it doesn't mean that the whole process is easy and without any hiccups. So keep in mind, once we find a buyer for your house, we're under contract and that buyer gets to do their inspections. That's really the first hurdle that we go through. Once the buyer does their inspections, they are allowed to ask you to make repairs, and you respond to that however you'd like, whether you'd want to do the repairs, maybe only do some of them or none of them. You could also offer a credit at close of escrow to the buyer's closing costs in lieu of repairs if you don't want to do the repairs, but you're willing to give them some money for it. That inspection process all has to be negotiated through before we move on to the appraisal process. And like I mentioned earlier, if the buyer is using financing, which most people are, the bank is going to have to do an appraisal, and that appraisal has to come back either at or above the purchase price that we've agreed upon. If it does not, it reopens negotiations, and we have to decide if we want to come down in our price to meet the appraised price, or have the buyer come up, or have us meet in the middle somewhere. And if we can't agree on any of this, the buyer is allowed to cancel the contract and receive their earnest money back, which leaves us listing back on the market again. So you see, that's why it's so important for us to price it right from the start, regardless of this being a seller's market. Once we've made it over those 2 hurdles, we're looking forward to closing day. And in the state of Arizona, closing day, the buyers take possession. So what that means for you as the seller is you need to be out of the house before closing day. I always recommend your movers come 1 to 2 days before closing so that you're out of there and the buyer will be able to get their keys and move in on that closing day. As a seller, you'll typically sign all the closing paperwork a few days in advance of the closing date. So that's not something that you have to worry about on the closing day itself. It can be taken care of a few days prior to close and get out of the way so you can focus on making the move. So that's what you can expect if you're thinking about selling your house in Phoenix right now. If you're on the fence and you want a bit more information about the days on market in your area or perhaps the price you could get for your house, I'd be happy to prepare an analysis for you that you could look through that'll help you determine if it makes sense for you right now to sell. I can also prepare a net sheet for you that will show the net amount that you would get from the sale of your house after all of the expenses and through the entire process. So if you'd like any of that information, feel free to reach out to me. I'm also linking below the instant home value tool that I have, so feel free to click on that link and get your instant home valuation. It might be helpful for you to decide if it's something you want to pursue. Thanks for coming to my channel and checking out this video. If there's any information I can help you with, feel free to reach out by call, text, or email anytime. For more information about the Phoenix real estate market, check out other videos on my channel. I give weekly and monthly updates, so that information will help you understand where we stand in the market right now. Until next week, I'm Caitlin McCagg with HomeSmart.